I never believed in ghosts. I used to laugh at people who claimed their house was haunted. That's why I'm having such a hard time writing this. Because now I don't laugh anymore. Now I just listen. It started when I moved into a small, two-story house on the outskirts of Ashgrove last fall. I was desperate. My last roommate had moved out unexpectedly, and I needed somewhere cheap. The listing said quiet home, long-term tenants preferred, attic sealed, do not attempt entry. I thought it was a weird note, but the rent was too good to pass up. The first few days were peaceful enough. The house was old, built sometime in the 1940s, with creaky wooden floors and faded floral wallpaper that peeled in the corners. I tried to make it feel like home, unpacked some boxes, set up my workstation, stocked the fridge. Nothing seemed off, except for a faint, sweet smell in the hallway upstairs, like burnt sugar and rot. On the third night, I heard it, a dragging noise, faint but deliberate, right above my bed. It was the kind of sound that makes you freeze before your mind can make sense of it. Like something heavy being pulled across wooden boards, slow, uneven, scraping. I sat up, holding my breath, and stared at the ceiling. The sound stopped immediately. I told myself it was pipes, or maybe raccoons. But then I remembered, the attic was sealed. The next morning, I called my landlord, Mr. Grayson. He was an old man with a cracked voice that always sounded like he was whispering through gravel. He said, "You don't need to worry about that attic, son. Best to just leave it alone." I asked what he meant by leave it alone. He just said, "Some places remember more than they should," and hung up. That stuck with me. The following nights, the noises got worse. First came the scraping again, then faint thumps, then what sounded unmistakably like footsteps. Slow, shuffling footsteps directly over my bed. I moved to the couch downstairs, but I could still hear it, above me, pacing the length of the ceiling. Around 2:15 a.m., I heard something else. A voice. It was faint, distant, and impossible to understand. It didn't sound like it came from a TV or outside. It was directly above me, whispering words I couldn't make out. I turned off all the lights. The whispers stopped, but then came a new sound, something like crying, a soft, wet sob, as if someone was trapped up there and trying not to be heard. That's when I realized the smell in the hallway had gotten stronger. It wasn't burnt sugar anymore. It was decay. By the fifth night, I'd stopped sleeping. I kept my phone flashlight on, waiting for the noises to start. They always did. Around 12:47 a.m., the crying began again, louder this time. It wasn't muffled anymore. It was desperate, almost human. I gathered all my courage and went upstairs with a flashlight. The hallway stretched in front of me like a tunnel. The air was thick and hot, like breathing through a blanket. The attic hatch was directly above the hallway light. The wooden frame around it had a faint brown stain that looked old. I reached up, trembling, and pulled the hanging string for the attic door. Click! The wooden panel shifted slightly, but didn't fall open. It was locked from the inside. And then something knocked, 3 slow knocks from the other side. I stumbled back, flashlight shaking, heart hammering in my throat. I whispered, "Who's up there?" Silence. Then a whisper, close right above me. "Don't open it." I ran downstairs, locked myself in the bedroom, and stayed up until dawn. The next morning, I found dirt on the floor beneath the attic hatch, like something had been pushed aside to open it from above. I called Mr. Grayson again. He didn't answer, so I left a message. A long one. Told him everything. Told him I wanted out of the lease. A few hours later, he showed up in person. His eyes looked sunken, his skin papery. He smelled faintly of antiseptic and something else like mildew. "You shouldn't have touched the attic," he said softly. "I didn't open it," I said. "But something's up there." He just nodded, his lips trembling. "She doesn't like being disturbed." That word, she, made my stomach twist. He went upstairs with a small hammer and a handful of nails. I heard him muttering something under his breath. It sounded like a prayer. Then came a sound of hammering. When he came back down, his face was pale. "It's sealed again," he said. "It should be quiet now." It wasn't. That night, at exactly 3:03 a.m., I woke to the sound of nails popping out of wood. One by one. Pop, pop, pop. Then the attic door creaked open. I didn't want to look. I knew I shouldn't, but I did. The attic hatch hung open just enough to reveal a strip of darkness. The smell that came out of it made me gag. A mix of rot, mold, and something metallic like blood left too long in the air. Then I heard her. A whisper that wasn't just a sound. It was a vibration through the walls, through my chest, inside my head. Help me. I don't know what came over me, but I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and climbed the ladder. The light cut through dust and cobwebs. The attic was small, maybe 10 feet by 12, filled with old boxes, broken furniture, and something wrapped in a thick, rotting tarp in the corner. The crying came from there. "Hello," I said, voice shaking. The tarp moved. Just a little. I took a step closer. My phone light flickered. That's when I saw it. A small hand, pale and stiff, sliding out from under the tarp. I screamed and nearly fell down the ladder. When I looked back up, the tarp was empty. After that night, everything changed. The walls started making noises even when the attic was silent, soft tapping like fingernails on wood. I'd see movement in the corners of mirrors, shadows that didn't belong to me. My phone alarm started going off randomly, always at 3:03 a.m. The smell of decay spread through the house. I decided to leave. I packed everything I could into my car that morning. But when I tried to start it, the engine wouldn't turn over. The battery was dead. I called a tow truck. The driver didn't show up. I went back inside to wait, and that's when I noticed something new. Footprints. Small, bare, wet footprints leading from the attic hatch down the hallway, across the living room, and right up to where I'd been sleeping on the couch. I followed them with shaking hands and found a small object sitting on the pillow. A dusty photograph. It showed a young girl, maybe 10, sitting in the same hallway. Her face was turned toward the camera, but her eyes were black voids, not edited, not blurred, just empty. On the back of the photo, written in shaky handwriting, were the words, "Don't let him lock me up again." That's when my phone buzzed. A voicemail from Mr. Grayson. His voice was strained, desperate. "If she's awake, leave the house. Don't talk to her. Don't listen. Just go." I ran to the door. It wouldn't open. None of them would. The windows wouldn't budge either. It was like something invisible was holding them shut. Then I heard it again. The dragging, the crying, the whispering, coming down the attic ladder. I backed into a corner, holding my phone light toward the sound. A shadow appeared in the doorway, small, hunched, moving wrong. Its limbs were stiff, jerking like a puppet on strings. It stepped into the light, and I saw her. The girl from the photo. Her skin was gray, her mouth open in a silent scream. Her eyes were still those same bottomless pits, but they were leaking thick, black tears that fell onto the floor and sizzled like acid. "Help me," she whispered again, voice distorted like a broken recording. I can't," I stammered. She tilted her head, the bones in her neck cracking. "He locked me up here. Don't leave me again." I screamed, grabbed my car keys, and sprinted for the door. I didn't look back, not even when I heard the attic door slam shut behind me. When I got outside, the air was freezing. I turned back once, just once, and saw her standing in the upstairs window, watching me. Her mouth moved, but I couldn't hear her. Then the lights in the house went out. I drove away that night, engine screaming, not caring about my things. I stayed at a motel for a few days, then found another apartment miles away. But sometimes in the dead of night, when everything's quiet, I hear faint scraping sounds above me. And once, just once, I woke at 3:03 a.m. to find a photograph on my nightstand. It was that same girl again, but this time I was standing behind her in the picture. I've lived in this apartment for 4 months now, and I've never once opened the door at the end of the hallway. It's not locked. The landlord didn't say anything special about it, but something about that door has always made me feel sick, a quiet, instinctive kind of nausea that tightens in my chest whenever I look at it too long. The apartment itself is small, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a kitchenette, and that narrow hallway leading to the door I never touch. The place was cheap, cheaper than anything else I could afford downtown, and I told myself I'd get used to the strange layout. But I can't, because every night, after 2 a.m., I hear breathing coming from behind that door. The first time it happened, I thought it was the neighbors. The sound was faint, steady, human, in and out, like someone was sleeping right against the other side of the wall. I banged once on the door and said, "Hello." The breathing stopped. I laughed at myself, shaking it off, and went back to bed. But 5 minutes later, it started again, slower this time, raspier. That's when I noticed something else. The door was cold. Not normal cold. It felt like holding my hand against metal left in a freezer. The air around it was different too, heavier, damp somehow, like standing next to a vent that blew fog instead of air. I pressed my ear to the door, just for a second. That was a mistake. The breathing was right there, so close it vibrated against the wood. And under the sound of breath, I heard something else, a faint, wet clicking noise, like teeth chattering. The next day, I asked my landlord, Mrs. Harlow, about it. She's an older woman, always dressed in faded floral dresses, hair in tight curls that smell faintly of bleach. "Oh, that door," she said, avoiding my eyes. "It's just a storage room. Don't worry about it." "Can I use it?" I asked. She smiled, but it wasn't reassuring. "Best not to. The last tenant didn't like that room much either." When I asked what happened to him, she just said he moved out in a hurry and changed the subject. That night, I pushed my dresser against the hallway door. It didn't help. Around 3 a.m., the breathing came back, louder this time. It sounded like something struggling, like lungs full of water. Then the dresser started to shake. Not violently, but just enough to make the handles rattle. I held my breath and stared as the wood creaked. Once, twice, and then fell silent again. I didn't sleep after that. The following morning, I noticed scratches on the inside of the doorframe. Faint at first, but definitely there. Like something had been dragged across the wood from inside. That day, I moved my dresser back. I needed to know what was happening. I placed my phone on a chair across the hallway and hit record before bed, leaving it facing the door. When I listened to the recording the next morning, the audio made my stomach drop. For the first few hours, there was nothing but silence. Then, around 2:47 a.m., the breathing started, louder than before. Then came a sound I can't explain. It was a whisper, low, rhythmic, impossible to understand, but definitely words. The tone was pleading, desperate. I replayed it a dozen times, and the last thing it said was almost clear. "Let me out." I called Mrs. Harlow again, told her I'd heard something in the room. She went silent for a long time before finally saying, "Don't open that door. Whatever you do, don't let it out." Then she hung up. I thought she was joking. I really did. Maybe she was just trying to scare me, or maybe she had some weird story about the apartment's past. But when I went to check, the doorknob was different. It wasn't the same old brass one anymore. It was newer, shinier, and colder than the rest of the metal in the apartment, like someone had replaced it overnight. That night, I pushed a chair under the handle and sat across the hall waiting. At 3:06 a.m., the breathing came back, rough, wheezing, labored. Then the knob started to turn. Slowly. Click, click, like someone testing it, over and over. "Who's there?" I shouted. The knob stopped turning. The breathing stopped. And then 3 slow knocks. By the next day, I was unraveling. I hadn't slept properly in 2 nights. My food tasted like dust. My reflection in the bathroom mirror looked gray and sick. I started to feel like I was being watched, even during the day. The weirdest part? My phone camera wouldn't focus on the door anymore. Every time I tried to take a photo, the image warped, black static filling the frame. Around noon, I heard a faint scratching again. Not from behind the door this time, but from inside the walls. It moved, crawling upward, sideways, down again, always ending back at the hallway door. I pressed my palm against the wall and whispered, "What are you?" Something tapped back. 3 times. That evening, I got a knock on my front door. When I opened it, Mrs. Harlow was standing there, clutching a small, silver cross in her shaking hands. "Did you open it?" she demanded. "No," I said, confused and terrified. Her eyes darted past me toward the hallway. "If it starts talking, don't answer. No matter what it says. It lies." "What is it?" I asked. She looked at me for a long time, then whispered, "A mistake." Before I could say anything else, she turned and hurried down the hall, leaving the cross on my counter. That night, I put it under my pillow. At 2:30 a.m., I woke to whispering again, but this time it wasn't muffled. It was inside the room. The voice came from the hallway, clear and sharp, speaking through the door. "Please, I can't breathe. Help me." It was a man's voice, weak, trembling. I got out of bed, my heart pounding. "Who's in there?" I said. No response, just soft sobbing. "Are you hurt?" The crying stopped. Then, in a voice that didn't sound human anymore, it said, "I remember you." I don't remember walking closer, but I did. My hand touched the cold brass of the doorknob. It was shaking beneath my fingers, as if something on the other side was trembling against it. "I can help you," I said, not recognizing my own voice. Then the cross under my pillow started to vibrate. I turned just in time to see it slide off the bed and hit the floor with a metallic clang. And that's when the door started to bulge. Not open, bulge. The wood swelled outward like something was pressing against it from inside. I could hear the sound of bones cracking, wet flesh stretching, breath turning into a gurgle. I stumbled back, screaming, as the door pulsed once more, then stopped. The breathing was gone. The hallway was silent again. I should have left right then, but I didn't. I was too shaken to think straight. The next day, Mrs. Harlow didn't answer her phone. When I went downstairs, her apartment door was wide open. The place was empty. No furniture, no clothes, nothing. Like she'd never lived there at all. When I came back up, the door at the end of the hallway was open. Just a few inches. The air coming out was freezing, heavy, and smelled like dirt and rot. I used my phone light to look inside. The room was empty, just concrete walls, no furniture, no windows. But the floor had deep scratches all over it, spiraling toward the center. And in the middle was a single thing, a dark stain shaped like a body. When I stepped closer, my phone light flickered and went out. Something brushed past my shoulder. Cold, wet, heavy. Then a whisper, right at my ear, "You shouldn't have opened it." I ran. I didn't stop to grab anything. I sprinted down the stairs and out into the street. I could still hear the door creak open behind me as I ran. I stayed with a friend for a few days, then went back just once, to collect my things. The hallway was gone, literally gone. Where it used to be was just a blank stretch of wall. The door had vanished. I thought that was the end of it. But sometimes, when I'm half asleep, I hear breathing again. It's faint, soft, steady, just on the other side of the wall. And every now and then, something knocks 3 times. I never should have bought that old TV. It was one of those garage sale deals, a dusty, bulky CRT set from the 90s, sitting on a rickety metal card. The owner said it didn't work, but for $5, I thought I'd take it home as a project. My apartment was small, a single room with nothing but a bed, a desk, and some shelves. The TV seemed harmless, even nostalgic. I didn't notice anything strange until I plugged it in. Static filled the screen instantly, filling the room with that high-pitched, electric hiss that makes your teeth buzz. I fiddled with the knobs, twisting the volume and contrast, and then I saw it, a shadow flickering behind the static. At first, I thought it was a trick of my eyes. The screen was small, and the room was dim. But the shadow didn't match anything in the room. It didn't move like a reflection. It moved on its own. I leaned closer. A shape emerged from the flickering gray. A face, maybe? Hard to tell. It wasn't human exactly. The features were wrong, stretched, and misaligned. The eyes were dark, deep voids that seemed to blink at a different rhythm than the static. And for the first time, I felt like I wasn't watching the TV. It was watching me. I jerked back, laughed nervously, and tried to convince myself I was imagining things. But every time I looked back at the screen, it was there, watching, waiting. The first night it became louder. Static-filled noise seeped into my dreams. Even when I closed my eyes, I could hear the hiss, punctuated by faint whispers I couldn't understand. Words that felt like claws scraping the inside of my skull. At 2:45 a.m., I woke to the sound of someone breathing. I froze. My apartment was empty. The breathing came from the direction of the TV. I sat up, the blankets sticking to my skin with sweat. The TV screen had changed. The static was moving differently now, not random but patterned. It flickered in shapes that resembled hands, pressing against the screen from the inside. And then the words came, clear this time, right from the speaker. "Don't look away." I tried to turn the TV off. Nothing. Unplugged it. Still on. The room went cold. My breath fogged the air. And then I realized the shadow was no longer confined to the screen. It was in the corner of the room. A figure, tall and thin, dark as the static itself. Its limbs bent at angles that shouldn't exist. I could see its eyes, black holes in a faceless head. It was still, but somehow moving, like it was breathing against the shadows of the room. I backed away toward the door, fumbling with the handle. Then it spoke, in a voice that was neither male nor female, neither human nor machine. "I've been waiting for you." I ran out into the hallway. My apartment building was silent, eerily so. Even the neighbors' lights were off. Every step I took echoed like thunder. When I looked back, the static shadow was in the doorway. It didn't walk. It didn't run. It dripped across the threshold like black liquid. I shut my apartment door, locked it, and pressed myself against it, shaking. I told myself it was just the TV, a hallucination caused by stress or lack of sleep. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next day, I tried to get rid of the TV. I carried it downstairs, intended to leave it by the dumpster. But when I got there, the screen was empty. Just static. I turned my back for a second, and when I looked back, it was on the floor behind me. I swear I didn't move it. That's when I realized it wasn't the TV I was afraid of. It was the thing inside it. Over the next week, it got worse. The figure began appearing in other screens. My laptop, my phone, the monitor at work, even the ATM across the street. Static, flicker, and then it would be there, watching, waiting. Sometimes it whispered. Other times, it simply tilted its head and stared. And I could feel it knowing things about me. My fears, my secrets. I stopped leaving the apartment. I stopped using electronics. I tried to hide, but it didn't care. Then came a first touch. I woke at 3:03 a.m. to a cold, wet hand on my shoulder. Not a dream, not sleep paralysis. Real. I felt the skin, clammy and soft like a corpse. I turned, and there it was, half in static, half in the air, leaning over me. Its face, featureless and dark, hovered inches from mine. It whispered, "You watch me through the screens. Now I watch you." I tried running again, leaving the apartment for good. But every door I tried, the building's exit, my car, even the elevator, was blocked. Not physically, mentally. I couldn't open them. It was like reality itself had become viscous, sticky. I smashed my phone. I tore the TV apart, but static appeared everywhere I looked. On the walls, on mirrors, on the blank pages of a notebook. It was patient, waiting, watching. At night, I dreamed of myself sitting in the darkness, staring at a screen that wasn't there. It was grinning at me, and I couldn't look away. This morning, I woke to the sound of static filling the room. My bedroom door is closed. My walls are empty. I don't know how it's doing it, but I can feel it in my chest, vibrating, alive. I don't know how long I have. I don't know if I'll be able to post this, but I have to write it. I have to tell someone. If you see a screen flicker tonight, your TV, your phone, even a monitor at work, don't look too closely. Don't stare. Don't think. Because if it notices you, it watches. It waits. And it never forgets.